Okay, now kita continue the second part of deadlock. Okay, so sebenarnya kita tengok on the resource allocation graph. So nanti you can do some exercise on the resource allocation graph. Okay, and the basic facts dalam resource allocation graph ialah kalau graph tu contain no cycles, tak ada berlaku cycle, so maksudnya proses tu ada tak tak hold ataupun waiting for tak hold ataupun waiting another process, so maknanya tidak akan berlaku deadlock lah. Kalau a graph tu contain a cycle, nak tahu dia ada deadlock ataupun tidak, if only one instances per resource type, then dia berlaku deadlock. One instance per resource type berlaku deadlock. Tapi kalau you ada several instances dalam satu resource type, possibility of the deadlock ataupun tak ada deadlock. So biasanya kalau satu resource type, deadlock akan berlaku. Tapi kalau you have a several instances, okay, dalam satu resources, possibility ada deadlock ataupun dia possibility tak ada deadlock. Okay, alright. So now kita dah tahu macam mana deadlock tu berlaku. Okay, right. So now macam mana kita nak handle the methods of handling the deadlock. Okay, to ensure that the system will never enter a deadlock state, so kita ada dua cara. Satu adalah gunakan deadlock prevention, and another one is pakai deadlock avoidance. Okay, this allow the system to enter a deadlock state and then do a recover. Okay, so maknanya kita tahu sama ada akan berlaku deadlock state ataupun tidak. Okay, so generally speaking, we can deal with the deadlock problem in one of three ways. First, we can use a protocol to prevent or avoid the deadlocks. It depends on the operating system. Sama ada dia akan avoid the deadlocks ataupun prevent the deadlocks. Okay, to ensure that the system will never enter a deadlock state. Second, we can allow the system to enter the deadlock state, detect it and recover it. Okay, kita boleh juga allow the system to enter the deadlock state. Kalau berlaku deadlock juga, kita detect, lepas tu kita akan recover it. And the third one, kita akan ignore the problem altogether and pretend the deadlock will never happen, occur in the system. So the third solution is one that used by the most operating system. So most operating system, okay, they try to use the third one. They try to be ignore. Okay, the problem, okay, they pretend deadlock tu never happen. Tapi sebenarnya kemungkinan deadlock will be happen. Tapi they try to be ignore ataupun they ignore keseruan deadlock problem atau pretend deadlock tak pernah berlaku dalam okay. So ini di mana end up the application they refer to write the program to handle the deadlock. Okay, dia kalau boleh operating system tak nak to handle the deadlock. Tapi some cases it can be happen. Okay, so try to ignore. Okay, tapi it can be happens. Okay, so that's why they have three things lah. Okay, so never dia akan prevent the deadlock. Okay, macam mana normally kalau berlaku problem deadlock ni, tiga benda ni lah. Okay, so use a protocol to prevent or avoid the deadlock by ensure that whenever enter a deadlock state. So that's why kita kena do some algorithm. Kita akan gunakan sesuatu algorithm untuk make sure that the deadlock state. So sama ada deadlock prevention ataupun deadlock avoidance. Lepas tu kita allow the system to enter a deadlock state. Okay, detect it and also recover it. Okay, and then kita ignore the problem and pretend the deadlock will never occur in the system. Okay, next we elaborate briefly on each of the three methods in handling the deadlock. Kita akan pergi detail deadlock prevention dan juga deadlock avoidance. Okay, to ensure that the deadlock never occur, the system can use either a deadlock prevention ataupun deadlock avoiding scheme. Okay, kita tengok dalam deadlock prevention. So deadlock prevention provide a set of method for ensuring that at least one of the necessary conditions cannot hold. Okay, alright. So in the validate one of the four necessary conditions of the deadlock. Sebab sebelum ni kita kena tahu 4 conditions of the deadlock kan. So the first one is kita tengok dari segi um, deadlock prevention, dia akan provide set method to ensure that at least one of the necessary condition cannot hold. One of the tak boleh hold. Okay, so this method prevent the deadlock by constraining the how request for the resources can be made. So nanti kita akan tengok okay on the deadlock. So kita akan tengok on the deadlock prevention. Okay, so dalam deadlock preventions, okay, kita boleh elaborate lebih detail deadlock prevention ialah pertama dari segi mutual exclusion. So kita dah tahu dalam mutual exclusion of deadlock ni, okay, there's no require for shareable resources. Okay, so tak boleh ada require for any shareable resources. Okay, they must hold for non-shareable resources. So ditambah je untuk elak prevent of deadlock. Pertama dalam mutual exclusion, one proses akan pegang resources, tapi resources yang dipegang tu tak boleh shareable resources. Example, you punya read-only file. Read-only file can be shareable, okay, which is can be used by other people. So, they must hold for non-shareable resources. Kedua, okay, so saya bagi explain on the mutual exclusion dulu. Okay, for instance, the printer cannot be simultaneously shared by the several processes. Shareable resources, in contrast, do not require mutually exclusive access and thus cannot be involved in the deadlock. Okay, so contoh lain, read-only file are good example of shareable resources. Okay, di mana if several process attempt to open the read-only file at the same time, they cannot be granted simultaneous access to the file. Kalau file tu is being dalam bentuk read-only mode, several process tak boleh access the read-only file dalam masa yang sama. So they can be granted simultaneous access to the file, tapi per process never needs to wait for the shareable resources in the read-only file at the same time. So they cannot be granted simultaneous access to the file. A process never needs to wait for the shareable resources. In general, however, we cannot prevent the deadlock by denying the mutual exclusion condition because some resources are intrinsically non-shareable. Okay, so secara intrinsiknya dia cannot be shareable. Okay, alright. Kedua, hold and wait. Okay, to ensure that the hold and wait condition never occur in the system, we must to guarantee that, okay, hold and wait, okay, kita nak prevent deadlock kan. So hold and wait dia macam mana? Kita kena make sure that whenever process request resources, it does not hold any other resources. Nak prevent deadlock kan. Kita tak nak berlaku deadlock. So mana-mana proses yang request resource, dia tak boleh hold other process. Okay, alright. So, they require a process to request, okay, and be allocated all its resources before it begins the execution. Macam mana nak tahu? So, proses akan bila dia nak ni, proses akan bagi tahu apa tu dia akan request and dia akan allocated all resources before sebelum dia execute. Sebelum proses tu kita execute, dia akan bagi tahu what are the resources yang dia perlukan dan proses resources mana yang kita akan allocated, atau kita akan allow the process to request resources only when the process has none allocated to it. Kita akan benarkan proses untuk request resources bila proses tak ada nak allocate mana-mana resources. This is to ensure that you have a low resource utilization and they can be have a starvation possible lah. Okay. Alright. Ini sebenarnya adalah lebih kepada protokol di mana kita set the rules. Okay. Protocols and set the rules di mana proses yang nak request use process, okay, one protocol use require each process yang request and allocated all resources before it begin the execution. Sebelum dia nak execute, dia kena tahu the process kena request and allocate the resources sebelum dia execute. Okay. So another protocol, kita allow process to request resource only when it has none. Okay, dia tak ada. Okay, dia tak allocated any of the resources. So the process may request some resources and use them. Before it can request any additional resources, okay, any other resources, so it can request only resources before it alternative protocol ialah process to request resources only when it has a none. Okay, the process may request some resources and use them before it can request any additional resources. However, it must release all the resources that is currently allocated. So maknanya kalau dia nak request another resources, they make sure that they have to release all the soft resources yang dia sedang pegang. Make sure dia tak ada pegang mana-mana lagi resources lah. Okay, tak allocate mana-mana resources. Okay. Okay, so ada disadvantage bila pakai hold and wait prevention macam ni. Okay, pertama adalah the resource utilization may be low. Low of resource utilization. Sebab you cakap proses yang nak request tak boleh hold another process. So kadang-kadang proses resources tu tak ada being allocated lah mana-mana resources. Okay, alright. Resources may be allocated but unused for a long time. Okay, so banyak. Okay, contohnya kalau for instance, currently the drive and the disk file, and then again you request file and also printer. Only we can show that our data will remain on the disk file. So otherwise we must request all the sources at the beginning of for both protocol. Okay, yang kedua adalah berlaku starvation. Starvation adalah di mana a process needs a several okay, alright, kelaparan. Okay, so they have to wait for a while, quite a long time. Right, and because at least one of the resources that it needs always allocated to some other processes. Okay, so ini kelemahan dalam deadlock. Okay, alright. Okay, kita tengok dalam deadlock prevention dari segi the third syarat dia, no preemption. Okay, so dalam the conditions of deadlock, kita tahu no preemptions of resources that have already been allocated. To ensure these conditions does not hold, we can use the following protocol. Di mana if a process is holding some resource request, okay, another resource that cannot be immediately allocated to it, and then all resource can really be held and released. Okay, so maknanya kalau proses tu hold some resources and then they request another resources, dia tak boleh immediately dapat. Okay, then dia all the resources yang dia pegang tu dia kena release. Okay, so maknanya tak ada berlaku perebutan lah kat sini. Okay, so that's why dia syarat, dia buat syarat. Preempted resources are added to the list of resources for which the process is waiting. So dia akan preempt, okay, the process yang mana yang ada process waiting for the resources. So the process will be restarted only when it can regain its old resources as well as the new one and it's been requesting. Okay. Okay, so this protocol sebenarnya dia kena check dulu. So alternatively, if process request some resources, we have to first check whether they are available or not. If they are, then kita boleh allocate. Kalau dia tak available, kita kena check pula whether they are allocated to some other process, okay, that is waiting for additional resources. So if we preempt the desired resources from the waiting process and allocate them to the requesting process. If the process are neither available nor held by the waiting process, the request process must wait. Okay, so neither tak available, lepas tu tak ada waiting process, so the request process tu kena tunggu. So while it's waiting, some of its resources may be preempted, but only if another process is requesting and recover any resources that will be preempted while is was waiting. was waiting. Okay, so this protocol is often applied to the resources whose state can be easily saved and restored later, such as CPU, memory. So kita boleh restore balik. Okay, so normally this kind of preemption punya ni, prevention syarat ni, protokol ni kita boleh apply dia dekat dalam resources yang boleh senang kita simpan dan juga senang kita untuk restore. Kemudian contohnya you punya CPU register ataupun you punya memory space. It cannot generally be applied to such resources such as printer and tape drive. Printer and tape drive you tak boleh gunakan no preemption like this. Okay, alright, it's not that easy sebab dia tak boleh save and then dia tak boleh restore. Okay, alright. Okay, then the fourth one is a circular wait. Okay, macam mana dia prevent of circular wait? First, the fourth condition deadlock is the circular wait condition. Then one way to ensure that this condition never hold is to impose a total ordering of all resource type and to require that each process requires resources in increasing order of enumeration. Okay, so to illustrate that, kita biarkan set R have a resources type and we assign to each resource type as a unique integer number, and it allows us to order to compare the two resources and to determine whether one proceed and another one in our ordering. Formally, we define one-to-one function. Okay, satu resources to one function. So n is actually the natural number. So for example, if the set resources type R includes a tape drive, disk drive, and printer, then the function might be defined as follows. Okay. Okay. Alright. So this is the deadlock circular wait, increase order of the enumeration. So maksudnya dia kalau boleh dia elak lah. Okay, berlaku total ordering of all resource type for each process request in the increasing order of the enumeration. Okay, so ini kita boleh tengok nanti macam mana dia hold and wait. Dia tak nak berlaku circular waiting, okay, of the resources. Okay, kita setkan dia. Okay, kita set siap-siap. Okay, so kita set the numbers. Okay, untuk that particular resources. Okay, berapa banyak. Okay, and then setiap tu request tu only increase of the enumeration, then where it in process can initially request any number of instances of resource type. So kita boleh bagi tahulah. Okay, ni resource ni ada certain number of instances saja. Okay, for the resource type. Okay, so bila these two protocol are used, the circular wait condition cannot hold. Okay, dia tak boleh hold. Okay, dia tak boleh hold lama-lama. Okay, alright. So we can accomplish this scheme applications program by developing and ordering small of synchronization object in the system. Okay, macam mana dia buat adalah dia akan through the develop ordering among all synchronization object in the system. So all requests for the synchronization object must be made in increasing order. So setiap resources tu dia akan mana-mana request for the particular resources, dia akan recognize as synchronized object, and dekat all request for synchronized object ni akan in dalam increasing number order lah. Okay. Okay, that is how the deadlock prevention. Okay, so the circular wait, okay, invalidating the circular wait in the most common lah. Okay, so maknanya they simply assign each resources as a unique number. Resource must be acquired in order. Okay, yang ni. Alright, and then do a thread. Okay, that's all.